Let's go!
What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of the Off the Ball podcast. With me, your host, Chris LeBron. I am the president of the Off the Ball Network, and we just launched a new logo, new website. So make sure to check that out. The new logo is fire, and then we got a lot of good reviews on that. Check out the new offtheballnetwork.com. Got a lot of great things coming. But we're gonna dive it. You guys know this is year 3 of me covering the NBA draft. And it's been a very special place in my heart to draft. So I love talking draft. And someone that I like talking to about the draft is joining me right now. Special guest, my guy, Walker Bailey. What's going on, Walker?
Not much, man. Really excited. Lots of combine stuff going on this week. Some, narratives are being confirmed. Some of them are dying. So I'm excited to get into it, and I think my favorite part too about the combine is how close it is to the draft. Because, once we get through all this stuff this week and, we kind of, we're right there. It's kind of getting time to go. We'll start talking trades. We'll start talking prospect fits, all that sort of stuff. And that's it makes your blood boil. It gets you excited.
Oh, yeah. Very excited. Because like you said, once you hit the combine, it's like, okay, the draft's around the block.
Yeah.
Like, it's here. It's here. And now you're getting to see, if the measurables, are matching up to the play and seeing these guys on the verts and see how they work, with other top players and all that. See who drops out. See who's still in it, because we've seen some guys drop out, and see who's going to, to stand out, because we're going to get some guys that we haven't really heard about, lower level guys or guys who were, who maybe didn't have the greatest of seasons because of just the, the talent they're around, the team they're around, and maybe just shine. And then there's a couple guys that I like that have kind of done that same thing. So
the
best part about it.
The combine's my favorite time to evaluate the second round guys.
And we got a special guest behind us.
Yeah, look there.
There she is. There she is.
Who's
our top prospect? Who's our top prospect?
She's a Paolo.
McGowan's? She's a Paolo?
Oh, well, yeah. She's everybody. Yeah, we're all McGowans in this house.
We're all McGowan. Is that a McGowan household? Yes.
But I love evaluating the second round guys at this combine.
That's
where you kind of see these guys play really well. You kind of already know what you have in the top guys, but it's the second round guys who maybe were covered up in college. Like I watched a lot of Jaylen Williams' 5-on-5 scrimmage stuff at the combine, and kind of that stuff he did in like point forward role. And I was kind of like, man, Matt Painter played him 20 minutes a night
off the bench.
I know, yeah. And so it's kind of some of those guys that can do a lot more than you think. And I'd imagine when Travion pulled his name out last year that it was not to come off the bench and play 20 minutes. Somebody got lied to.
I always thought that was weird. I'm like, why is this? Who's this good? Like, everyone praised him, and he played like he was better than the guy coming off the bench just playing 20 minutes a game.
Well, because Painter got fascinated with Zach Edey, and he didn't think and they couldn't play together.
Let's see how that worked in the tournament.
I know, but yeah, and they couldn't. And he tried to play them together, and they got killed defensively, which they were.
Yeah, that was thing defensively, but I just didn't like the Edey. I know he's a big dude, and big guys like that are going to work in college, but Travion needed to be on the court at all time. He needs to be playing 30 minutes.
Well, and Purdue could have done so much. That Ivy Travion pick and roll was lethal. They really could have they could have worked so many different things, and with the shooters they had surrounding those guys and Travion's ability to pass the ball.
He's a tremendous passer. He's not even just a good passer for a big. He's just a plain good passer.
Dude, he looked like some of the passes he made reminded me of stuff I watched Jokic do with his back to the net. Stuff that he's throwing skip passes over his shoulder, and I was just and I'm not comping the guy to Jokic, but
no, I know exactly what you're trying to say.
Yeah, you're just saying some of the stuff that you're like, okay, I watch that happen in NBA games, in playoff games. That's what I see regularly, and this guy's out here doing that and showing skills that translate. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody took him in the late first. If you got a team who, if you told Golden State jumping into the late first and being all right,
they had the 28th pick. I mean, he feels like he would be a perfect as Draymond gets older and starts to wear down a lot. He could just boom. We got a little Draymond replacement.
Yeah, but he's the same size and kind of has that same run the offense skill, and he won't be as good defensively.
Oh, of course, not defensively, but everything, the passing,
offensively, and offensively, he's better than Draymond ever was offensively. So.
Exactly.
And so it's a little bit different, but but also a little bit of the same in a lot of ways. But it's stuff like that that is why I like the combine. I don't really tune into the combine to watch guys like Paolo and Jabari jump. I mean,
because they're not going to even do that much. So we already know those guys are going top 3.
Yeah, you're just
the big 3, and so like you said, it's trying to find those late gems, those late first, those second round guys. Those to me is why I love doing this. Because like you said, who cares about? We know who's going the top 3.
No,
it's finding those late round gems and those second round guys. Because it feels like more than ever, those second round picks are valuable. Like teams aren't just giving away second round. Like they used to throw in second round picks like years ago for and it didn't, because the second round pick wasn't going to be a relevant player. Now second round picks are vital pieces to your team. Now those are like essentially first round picks, as we got so much talent coming in, from all these different leagues. Like high second round picks are very valuable.
Well, and like
more
the
than ever.
Spurs I think the Spurs picked 38th, and like that's a good player.
That's
like,
a good,
that's not
they took
they took Joe Wieskamp or whatever at like 51 last year, and that's a guy where you're like, all right, that's probably not a guy, but like at 38, you're taking some of these guys. I mean, think about it. I mean, we watched Desmond Bane be a second option in the playoffs, and I mean, he was picked at what, like 31. I mean, like he went like 30. He went like 30.
He was a late first, right? He was a late first round pick.
He was either a late first or like the first pick of the second round. Like he was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's guys like that you just kind of like, if you evaluate well and you make those good picks, late first, early second, like it can change the entire. He went 30th overall, so like I think last pick the first round.
That's the last pick in the first, and that's how look how much value they got out of that. Like that is a potential, a guy who can give you 20 points a game with the 30th pick. Like he's a borderline all-star, at the 30th pick. That shows how much value you got out of that pick. Like that's just tremendous.
Yeah, and the combine's a great time to find those guys, because like you're not going to find those guys, I don't think, necessarily always in college tape, because if you found it in college tape, they wouldn't be available at 30.
Exactly. Yeah, I think he had a good combine last year, and I heard his name a lot from a lot of people, and he was someone that I kept an eye on, and then it just felt like he the fact that he went 30th was kind of shocking, but it just shows that there's so much talent out there, and this combine is crucial for guys like that. The Desmond Banes, the guys like that you're gonna be like, oh wow, I didn't, I heard about him, but whoa, okay, maybe the
I was hoping for more Champagne buzz out of the combine, but I haven't really got
I haven't heard a lot, and that's not a good thing, I don't believe. And I was very high on Julian. I liked him. I have him had a top 45 grade on him, but haven't heard much on him. I kind of got to do some more homework and see if there's anything, but I haven't heard anything, and I don't think that's a good thing. Usually not a good thing. So maybe he's someone that he may be thinking about coming back. I don't know.
We talked about this pre-show. Usually when you leave the combine, there's some sort of positive buzz. You did something right to impress somebody. And if there's no buzz at all, that usually is not a good thing.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything. So that's kind of worrisome, because like I said, I like him a lot. I like his scoring ability. I like what he can do from deep. He's not over athletic, but I just like the way he could just score from the perimeter and jump shot.
Getters, man.
Yeah, and he's a bucket. He's simply a bucket getter, but I could see the measurables kind of not being in his favor. So we'll see. Hopefully, I got to do some more homework on him and see what I'm hearing. But I want to talk about two guys in particular, and we had talked about this pre-show. Two guys that are kind of unknowns. And that's Sharpe and Leonard Miller, two guys that didn't play college basketball last year. How do you evaluate these two? Because obviously we just have essentially AAU high school film of them. How do you – because we're hearing Sharpe top 5 buzz. He wants to go number 1. And Leonard Miller, we're hearing top 20. I'm hearing right now. Definitely first round, but top 20.
Feels very Spursy, Josh Primo. Like,
yes, it is very
a young guy that climbs late, and they take him at like 20, and everybody's like, "What in the world?"
Yeah,
like, this guy.
Yeah. So how do you evaluate these two guys? Because it's tough. You got no film. All you have is high school, and I could lie, right? We know how high school is. Like you playing against a lot of kids that may not be even playing, varsity level.
No, you could be playing some kids.
Yeah, you're playing JV type guys,
Yeah, you could be playing some kid that's 1 week away from never playing again. Like
Exactly,
I
right?
mean,
Guys are just playing just to fill a roster or just to play. But like, how do you evaluate these two? Because these are obviously two guys that are very polarizing.
yeah, I think if you're an NBA team, all you really can do is you go back into the EYBL type circuits where they're playing other top level talent, and you maybe even rewind back into like their junior year and kind of watch them play against prospects that you've already seen do well in college or do well in the league. And I mean, it's really all you can do. And then I think honestly, I don't really even think it's about basketball. Like I think it's you have to get in a room with these guys and interview them and talk to them and figure out where their mind's at. Because with like high school guys like this, you're just kind of, if you're going to draft guys this high, you have to be able to trust them. And so if you're going to be able to, or if you're going to spend a pick on them, you have to be able to trust them. And I think that the biggest thing is figuring out where their head's at, where the motivation's at, figure out what they have around them. Is there a good support system? And just kind of figure out, is this type of really young guy, likely young, immature guy who really has no idea what the league and what day-to-day, every single day basketball life is going to look like? Is this person in a place where they can be set up to succeed and set up to thrive? And so I think that's the most important thing. And the only way you can figure that type of stuff out is sitting there and talking to them. So that's kind of, I think, the most important thing when you're evaluating two guys like that. What they can do on a basketball court is, I hate to say irrelevant. That's never true. But like, it's, it almost takes a back seat because, we know that both of these guys have immense levels of talent. That's never been in question.
Yeah.
It's whether or not they're ready to thrive in the toughest league in the world.
Yeah. And like, you talk about the EYBL circuit, like, Shaedon killed it on that circuit, but it's still tough to evaluate guys. He has all the tools. Or what is he? 6'5", 6'6", super athletic.
Yeah.
Has like 3-level type of 7 foot. I think he has like a 7 foot plus wingspan or close to it. Has all this everything you want in a wing type player.
But 6'11" and a half wingspan.
Yeah, so essentially a 7 foot wingspan. Like it's crazy. Like at 6'5", but. And like I said, he killed an EYBL circuit, but it's still, you're playing against guys your age, and you go into the next level, and you're playing against LeBron James and Bradley Beals, and you got to guard those types. So how does that fare? And like you said, the maturity thing, like obviously a lot of these guys got to figure out the maturity stuff because they're all very young. But it's just you got to do your homework because you're investing, especially with Shaedon, who's most likely projected to be top 5. You got to do a homework because there's a potential. You're investing money into guys being potential face of the franchise. Yeah, he may have all the tools, but can he actually be able to do it at the next level? And that's something that you got. He's probably the top 5 prospect. Is probably doing the most. We all know about Paolo. We all know about Chet. We all know about Jabari and Ivy. But this Shaedon
feels like he has to prove himself, and so like he's going to do a ton of stuff this week, and kind of feel like, okay, like let me show you why I'm a top 5 pick. I mean, I don't think it's out of the question that the guy goes number 1 overall. I don't think we can rule it out.
I think he could jump to. I don't know. I wouldn't go that far personally. I don't think he'll be number 1, but I think he could jump Jaden Ivey.
I don't think 4. So. I don't think I think when you get into the top 3 grouping, I think that all those guys are very similar in terms of future projection. They're just very different talent skill sets. And so I think if you feel confident enough to put him into that group, then I don't know. I don't think there's a case, or I don't think that there's no case for him going number 1 overall. Like, I think it's possible. Like, I don't think that's going to happen, but I mean, I don't think you can rule it out yet. It's too early. Like, all it takes is one team to jump in and buy in on that long-term potential. He was he wasn't consensus, but he was already in the conversation at number 1 overall for next year. Like, so all it takes is someone buying in and believing that they're getting an elite talent and deciding that his skill set fits a roster in Orlando.
Like, someone's going to take that chance too.
I still feel like Sacramento is probably.
He feels like a Sacramento, like, and we talked about that, like how Sacramento kind of takes guys,
which in turn makes me feel like he's a bust. Like, just because
he's ultimate boom or bust, right? I don't think there's I think there's a few guys in this draft. I feel like there's no true in between. I think it's either they're going to hit it or they're going to be, out of the league in 4 years. Like I don't see an in between with him. And if you go to Sacramento, I mean that's good luck. Good luck. Because the culture there is
fair,
just bad.
they have done a decent job developing guards lately. Like
yeah, but they're still losing 50. It just feels like the culture there is just,
no, they're not.
Especially when they traded Hallie, it feels like when they traded Hallie, it feels like the morale got even worse. Just from what I heard and just reading stuff, that was like a real like what? Like you traded Hallie? Like that doesn't make sense. Why would you trade a guy who's and I know Fox was they probably wanted to trade Fox, but they just couldn't find a buyer because
they couldn't find somebody to pay.
They couldn't find one to take some money. So like trading Hallie, with the bonus made more sense. But to me, it was just like you try to you give the keys to Hallie and let him go because I feel like he's an all-star potential player. It would be hard for me to trade guys like that. I didn't get it, and that's why I even have a trade. And hear me out on this trade, and I'll get right to Leonard Miller, but just a quick trade that I got. A buddy of mine from Sports Illustrated, Brett Siegel, told me about this trade, and he was like, it was let me see if I can get exact, but it was just off the top of my head, it was like Rashawn Holmes and the 4th pick going to the Knicks for the Knicks' current 11th pick, next year's Dallas pick they have in 2023. I think maybe another pick and Cam Reddish and some contract, I think, offload. Is that something? Who do you think? Who says no? Essentially.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, 4 is where you get into a weird spot with trade discussions because it's like how much does Sacramento like the first prospect after Chet, Jabari, and Paolo?
Because like you said, the guard, it's kind of gets guard heavy at that point.
And they need a guard. Like they need someone to play with Fox, but it's just like how highly do they think of those guys? And if not, it would make some sense. And Sacramento gets a haul there. Reddish is a guy. Reddish is kind of a moot point. He just kind of play. He would play there, and then to move back 7 spots and then also gather future first round picks. I don't think New York would give up that many picks to move up 7 spots.
But what if they're keened in on, let's say, Ivy or Sharpe? And
maybe, but then don't you just wait later and give up less to go up to 5 or 6 whenever the whole thing breaks? Because that feels like something that happens in the moment, not something that happens
obviously, you would wait.
It happens on draft night. But if Sacramento balks and takes Keegan Murray or someone like that, or Maturin,
then if you're the Knicks, you got to jump up to 5.
Then if you're the Knicks, you're like, okay, well, we can go to 5, or we can go to 6, knowing that we like both of these guys equally, and knowing that one of them is going to be there and it's going to cost.
But that's if you're content with, okay, no matter we're good with either or. If you're good with either or, that makes sense. But if you're keened in on Jaden Ivey and we got to come out of this draft with Jaden Ivey, then the prospect of going up to 4, you kind of have to figure out because you want to be all right. We know the top 3 is set. Whether who goes where, we don't know. But the top 3 is the top 3 players. They're going top 3. 4 is Ivy. We gotta get Ivy. We gotta come out of this draft with Ivy. So I could see either or, but like I said, it makes sense because that's what I'm saying. Sacramento is a team it's maybe not be a trade that I would offer for most teams, but it's Sacramento, and they've done great. They've drafted some, like you said, Papagiannis a couple years back, and everyone was like, "What? What was?" And that's when they still had DeMarcus Cousins, and it was just like, okay, that doesn't make any sense, and he wound up just not being anything of a pro. He was just not good at all. So it didn't make sense. So if this is any other team, maybe you don't even think about this trade. But since it's Sacramento, and they just could possibly do something crazy, that's why I actually entertained it. Because a lot of trades, especially with the Knicks, people just generate all right, that's just not realistic. But this one, I'm like, oh, you know what? It is realistic in a sense.
We talked about how valuable draft picks are now, though. Are you giving up it was a 1 future first and a future second or something like that?
But I think next year's pick, the Dallas pick, is top 10 protected.
Well, but they're not going to be in the top 10 anyway.
But they're not going to be top 10 opposite. So, are you willing to risk losing that pick?
Are you willing to risk losing the 20, call it 20, Like I think that's a mid-level.
Most likely, yeah. It's going to be the 20th pick. Are you willing to risk that to get a guy who you feel like can jumpstart, jumpstart the franchise back? Because
again,
they have a lot of cap. They have a lot of money concerns too. Because they just paid Julius. RJ's up for a rookie extension. Mitch is up for an extent. Like he's going to want to get paid. So like, they got to figure things out there. And if they think Ivy's their guy, then you might have to do that. But who knows? There's still time to see. And like I said, Sacramento can take freaking. They could take Shochan at 4 and then be like, okay, the Knicks don't have to give up as much, and they can get their guy at 5 or 6.
If I'm the Knicks, I'm not doing that, and that's just because of how I feel.
And you know what? That's probably the first I've heard someone say that, because most people were like, the Kings wouldn't do it. But like I say, the Kings are the Kings. So like, probably the first person I said the Knicks wouldn't do that. And now that you're bringing up actually some good points, I could see why they probably be like, you know what? Let's just wait it out, because you guys tend to do some funky stuff draft day and take players that are like, okay, let's wait till you guys mess it up, and then we'll move up to 5 or 6 or 7, and we'll get the guy that we think we want, that it's our, that we like, and we'll get him there.
And the other thing too is like, it all comes back to prospect evaluation, and like, do you really, and like, so for me, like if I'm looking at Jaden Ivey or Shaedon Sharpe, like there's a chance that they jumpstart this thing, but I'm not betting on it to the point where I'm giving up a bunch of future picks or I say a bunch, but future picks and then current players to move up and like take that risk, because if it doesn't work, then you're just out a bunch of firsts, or you're out firsts. And
but think about this: if you're the Knicks, Leon Rose kind of on the hot seat, right? You kind of have to do something to
you need a new toy.
This might be you need a new toy. Exactly. You need a sparkly, shiny toy that can buy you maybe another year or two. So, and like you said, you got some contract things you got to figure out. Like, there's a pressure on him. There's pressure on Leon and William, I say, all these guys. And you know how New York is, bro. There's the pressure.
Exactly. I know how New York is. So if they move up to 4 and this cat's not in contention for Rookie of the Year, they're going to fire him anyways.
Yeah, but that, to me, I think that's a risk you got to take. I think you buy that Ivy you buy his talent at the next level. I think his first step is absolutely elite. I think his skill set fits the NBA perfect.
This is why I said I think New York's going to move so fast in free agency, because I don't really think they want to rely on the draft to do something like that to create buzz. So like, I think they're going to move as fast as possible in free agency. Like any big trade, big free agent signing that they can make, I think they're going to move as fast as possible to make that stuff happen. Because I think they want to have the roster in place where when they don't move up and they take a guy at 11, people can be like, okay, this team is 7 or 8 wins better than last year, and like we can get in the playoffs. Because like, if they're in the playoffs again for the second time in 3 years, I don't think he's on the hot seat at that point. Like they're probably like, people aren't thrilled, but like you can at least sell like, hey, we're progressing. And maybe, maybe he fires Tibbs as like this roster should be able to do more, yada, yada, yada. And it buys
and get one of these young coaches that, we've seen a lot of success of, like the Ime Udokas and the Willie Greens.
I think there's a fairly simple path where, they move fast in free agency. They take the BPA at 11 and, they have a better roster than last year. And they, maybe then they don't blow all those leads, and they did blow a lot of. It felt like they blew. Yes, they played really bad fourth quarter.
Incredibly bad fourth quarter bat, and blew a lot of 20-point leads. That
I mean, there was a stretch where they blew like 5 straight, and like, so I guess point being, like, I think there's a path where, like, you maybe find ways to get rid of those things, and a young team gets a year older, so they figure out how to play with those leads and whatever else. And if you sell Julius off, maybe you get a guy back who helps with that. And I don't know. I think there's a pretty easy path. Like, there's a lot of paths where they're 7 to 8 wins better, and they're back in the back end of the playoffs, and they fire Tibbs and be like, all right, this team should have been a 5 seed, and everybody's like, no, it shouldn't have been, but you fired Tibbs, so that's a good thing. Like,
no, I could see that. I could see them staying put,
and too, like, I know he's perceived to be on the hot seat, but like, you still don't want to like lose a bunch of future assets, and like that So,
but like I said, the pressure of Leon, some of those GMs, when they're in that spot, they don't really care about the future because they might not even be there. So they might just try to figure out how to get the now. So that's just my thinking of, like, that's how I kind of process things. But I could see them, doing something in free agency, getting a trading for someone and just staying put at 11, or trading that pick to get someone, and that too. So they're in a situation where it could get better. It could get better, but they can also get worse. Like it kind of in a weird spot, but I can see either or. I can see them trying to. I think they're going to try to trade up. I think it's an option, but I can also see them staying put at 11, just taking the best, because you can still get a good player at 11. It's It's just a matter of, it's all about evaluation, and making sure you're doing your homework, and just taking the best player at that point. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with them. So all right, go back to Leonard Miller. He's the second guy we were talking about. Why we got a little track with the Knicks. What's your thoughts on him? He kind of he came on late. Not a lot of people know about Leonard Miller. So what's your thoughts on him? And just how do you evaluate him too? Because he's another one that's we don't have much film on.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, I need to watch more of him. I haven't.
Me too. Really, yeah, I don't have a lot of intel on him.
I hate doing that, but I mean,
the measurables. You got the measurables. That's all we can go off.
Measurables, and he's 18 years old. He measured. I saw Givney tweet I guess about a month ago that he was 6'11" in shoes with a 7'2" wingspan and a 9-foot standing reach.
7'2", 7'3" wingspan, which is that's first round alone, just based off the measurables.
Yeah, and so but then again, he also all we have on him is high school stats, and he played 9 games.
He didn't play a lot, that too. So that's a little worrisome that he hasn't played even at the high school level a lot of games.
And then and then he played some FIBA stuff on the Nike Hoop Summit.
Yeah,
and he averaged 11, 5, 2, and 2 against and it was against elevated competition. So that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he's long, he's athletic, and I think there's potential for other playmaking and creating his own shot type stuff. But I mean, he's just so raw, and if there's so many unknowns, I don't know how good of a shooter he's going to be. So, and then
I mean, from what I hear, that's the one thing he needs to work on is his outside shooting. He's not a great shooter right now.
Yeah, and then also the other thing with these high school kids is you never know how they're going to defend in the NBA. And that's kind of if your two biggest questions are shooting and defense, it's okay, well, what are you going to do well for me in your rookie year? He's a major project, and I think he needs to be someone's going to buy in on the potential, but I think he really needs to be in a setting where they don't need him to produce right away. That's why we liked Kuminga's fit with the Warriors so much last year. Mm-hmm. It's because he needs something like that where he can kind of sit back and take years to develop and unlock that tool set. And in the NBA, that's a risky proposition because it's not like the NFL where you can take 3 years, and if you pay off in 3 years, that's great. You need to pay off in year 1, year 2, and elevate your team. And I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. If he ended up on my team, I'd be talking myself into the potential. If he didn't end up on my team and I was looking at him in a different setting, I would be okay, there's a ton of question marks there about his viability as a prospect. It's a really intriguing debate, and it's one where there's no wrong answers. But I think he's pretty easy to talk yourself into because that length has elite defensive potential if he locks in. You can do a lot of things. I mean,
yeah, I think it's very interesting. He's very polarizing because his talent and just from what I hear is top 10, but you just can't. It's just not enough high level games. And like you said, the Nike Hoop Summit, he played good and showed off that, but still, that's still need to see more. And it's just I could see someone taking a chance on him in that late lottery. I could see someone possibly just simply because he's a
Cleveland.
I mean, if you're Cleveland, would you take a gamble on that? Because I mean, you kind of need a wing.
Yeah.
You kind of need a wing because right now, I mean, Okoro hasn't shown the offensive, prowess. I mean, defensively he's solid. They have what's his face from who they get traded for?
Laurie. They have Laurie too.
They have Laurie Marketing.
They did the whole Avalanche thing where they played
Levert. They still have Levert. But I don't know if he's that dude that's in their long-term plans. So maybe it's someone. Yeah, I could see a Cleveland being like, hey, we've shown that we can develop guys now.
Feels kind of Charlotte-y. Feels kind of Charlotte-y.
Charlotte too. Yeah, he does feel Charlotte. I mean, you add that to that with LaMelo. And you might not even have to worry about him, with the shooting and outside. Just, hey, transition, just run, man. Just run. And they might need to feel, because with Mikal Bridges, I mean, I don't know how that contract stuff's going on, but maybe, if they can't find a way to re-sign him, maybe that's someone you can, develop down the line to take his spot, because he's him and LaMelo could be something.
Yeah, running and just being a cutter,
Yeah, and that's what he's good at. He's a good cutter and all that. So that definitely helps when you don't have to worry about the other stuff defending. Just run, just run. LaMelo just gonna run. So maybe that could be a good spot for him too.
Yeah, it would make a lot of sense. I wouldn't be surprised if he climbs. Those high potential guys tend to climb. That's why, some of the guys that I see, kind of mocked around 20, I'm kind of like, yeah, but I feel like those guys don't get drafted at 20. Those guys are going to probably get drafted at 12 because, just because of the potential and the upside. And there's other guys that I like that.
That's like Zaire last year.
Mm-hmm.
Zaire did not have a good season at Stanford at all, but he went top 10 because he's his measurables and all the talent, that's top 10 talent. So let's take him there. And that was for a Memphis team that's kind of had a lot of good pieces around him. And they felt like, we take him here. And maybe it was a reach. I know a lot of guys weren't crazy about Zaire. Didn't think they thought that what you saw on tape was what he was, and didn't think he's someone that's probably better off, that would be a better pro than college player. But, it's kind of, it could be similar to that, where the talent is just we can't pass up on the talent. Just buy into our system and we can make you, the player that we think you can be. So going to be interesting to see with Leonard Miller and Shaedon Sharpe how they what happens, and we'll get more intel on them as the time goes. But two guys that have not a lot of film, but crazy amount of potential. So that's going to be interesting to see. But let's get into your San Antonio Spurs. You got 3 first-round picks, 9, 20, and 25, and you have an early 39th in the second round, right?
Yep.
I believe
something like that.
So you're the GM, Walker. How are you going into this draft with these 3 picks? Are you thinking, okay, are you going in to think, okay, are we going to try to package to try to move up? Is there a guy that we have in mind that we want? And if he's there, we're going to try to move up with this package? Or are you keen in, okay, if we do stay put with all these picks, these are the type of players we're going to select. How are you approaching this draft if you're the San Antonio Spurs?
So, I'm the first thing I tweeted when they called the Spurs name in the lottery is that the Spurs shouldn't make a pick at 9. They shouldn't make a pick. So, and in saying that, the thought was that you're either shipping the pick off to move up, packaging the other picks and moving up, or you're shipping the pick off for someone in the league already. I don't think that any of the prospects at 9 are guys that, that kind of change the course of the franchise. And the Spurs need one of those. They don't need another 3rd, 4th starter. They have plenty of those.
Yeah, they need to find they need a pop on this one.
They need
some
pop. That's why I think, for me, I'd be trying to move up. I think Houston is who I'd call Houston or Oklahoma City, with the idea of trying to draft Paolo. That's kind of where I would go. And I think the fit there makes the most sense of the top 3. They really need someone who can play the 4.
Yes, you don't have one. You don't have one.
No, and they have embraced this idea of quote unquote positionless basketball. And so I think they want to do this thing where, they have a 4 on the roster, but he spreads the floor and can play on the perimeter. And every time I think about that, I'm just kind of man, it feels like they're just talking about Paolo. And so I feel
but can you pull it off? Do you think there's a world that they can pull it off, that Houston would be like, you know what, let's say it's 3,
let's say yeah. So when I say move up, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, the Spurs call Houston, be all right, listen, let's trade that draft situations. We'll give you 9, 20, and 25 for 3. And I don't know what Houston says. We've seen in the past, now granted this is late lottery, not top 3, but we saw last year how I guess was it Charlotte that moved up and gave up an extra, they just gave up 1 extra first to move up 8 spots. Now, so granted, different situation. Moving into the late lottery or moving into the mid lottery is a lot different than trying to move into the top 3.
Yes.
But then granted, we're also talking an extra first round pick here. And then even if you have to give up I don't know, like one of these third starters that's on this roster. Like maybe you sign and trade Lonnie Walker and ship him over there. I don't know. I mean, like just give them like just throw in like stuff that you're kind of like, yeah, this guy's probably not going to be on this team in the future. So like, I mean, like if you want to send Devin Vassell, go ahead. Like fine.
Mm-hmm.
But like Devin Vassell in 3 firsts, like I think Houston's probably goofy to not take that. Like
you would have to, because look, they got
because of
they got
Vassell,
Sengun, they got Garuba, who they took last year, right?
yeah, and then you slide Vassell in, and he's like just a nice stable.
They got Christian Wood, you know.
Yeah, and he's a stable option at the 2,
and he's essentially what people think Paolo could be, maybe a little better, but that's essentially the type of player that you're hoping Paolo can be, is like a Christian Wood type player.
Well, yeah, no, and then you send, so like from a Spurs perspective, if you send Vassell, it gives Houston a stable option at the 2. Like it allows them to invest more in those young guys and be like, all right, we don't really have to worry about shooting guards right now. We can kind of focus on developing these bigs. You know, we can go and spend money. We can do whatever, however they want to do that. And then they're like, all right, and you know what? We can add 3 more guys onto this roster and try to accelerate this rebuild later in the first round, because Houston has shown that they want to make more picks in the first round. Like they moved up last year to take Şengün. They've had guys that they really like in that mid lottery or late and like, or not lottery, mid first round and kind of latest first round. And so, I mean, I think it's an easy sell for Houston. Like Hanray's guy in the Houston war room is like, guys, y'all realize this means we're adding four impactful basketball players, because you know, when you're a GM or a scout, you always think you're making the perfect decision.
Of course.
In terms of like making draft picks, you never think a draft pick is going poorly when you turn in the card. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, you know, guys, like, is Paolo really worth more than 4 impact basketball players on this young team? And I think that you have to think about that. Like, I think Houston, I think at least there that gets you in the ballpark where Houston doesn't hang up. Houston's like, all right, hold up, let's talk about this. Like, let's think about it.
No, like, I think you definitely have to think. I think you definitely have to be like, okay, yes, all right, Paolo can be that dude for us, but man, getting 3 first-round picks, moving back a little bit, but we trust our evaluation process.
Well, you know what? And if they want to come back up and they like someone else, like, you know, and
that's the thing, they could trade back up and get, you know, someone, you know, whether it's Shaden, like they could still maneuver.
Yeah, like if you like, and if you like a guy like Shaden, or you like a guy like Maturin, or you like a guy like Keegan, or like someone like that, where you can go and like be like, all right, you know what, like we'll be able to move up a few spots, and you know, we'll be better off for this in the long run, and we'll come away with more impact players. And you know, that's the thing with, and I think the pro from the San Antonio standpoint, like we're listing all the pros here for Houston, but the pro from the San Antonio standpoint is really just simply like, okay, you know, you lose Vassell, but you know, now you've kind of cleared a spot where you can throw Primo in that starting lineup, which they already were trying to do anyways. Like they had started doing that anyways.
Yeah, they saw that.
Now you just start. You know, well, you either start Primo at the 2, or if the Spurs go off and do what they've been talking about doing and go sign like Zach LaVine. Like they've been talking about doing that. So if you end up making that happen and you offer him, because really there's not a ton of teams with max cap space. And so
no, there isn't.
You make something like that happen, and all of a sudden Devin Vassell's usage on this team is pretty much 0.
It's 0, yeah.
And so you trade a guy like that who would have value to another team. You ship the 3 firsts, you get Paolo, you bring in LaVine, or someone like that. Like you try to make something like that happen. And the good thing too is going into the draft before you make that trade, you probably know whether or not you already have LaVine before you make that offer. Like,
oh yeah.
And so like in a hypothetical world, like that's kind of what you would do. You try to sign like LaVine, because I don't really think they can sign Beal. Like I don't really think that fits. Like I don't really think that Beal would even listen to that offer, even if it's a max. I don't think he's listening to that, because he's getting maxes from everywhere that offers him. Like, and so he's probably like San Antonio.
And I think he'll stay put in. I think LaVine's most likely the one.
No, I think, and like everything we've heard about LaVine is that he's kind of soured on Chicago, and like he's looking around. And, you know, and DeJounte and LaVine are so close, like they're, you know, 2 peas in a pod, however you want to describe it.
Yeah.
So you have the connections there and the money there to make it happen. And if you somehow do make that happen, which they want to do, then you're talking about those 3 first-round picks and Devin Vassell being like inconsequential. And if you kind of have a little mini I hate to use the word young because it's not young. It's young because Paolo would be young, but like a big three that would have growth, like or be able to grow. Like you would have a Paolo, DeJounte, Levine type deal, and Keldon Johnson's a stable option at the 3, and Pirtle's a stable option at the 5. Like that's a playoff team.
Hey, that's definitely. I mean, you guys were a play-in team this year.
And then you talk about adding 2 impact guys to that. Like, I mean, you're probably a middle of the West team with room to grow because you still have guys like Primo sitting there that have a lot that they can unlock. Paolo's going to get better and better and better.
And that's what some teams in the West, we've seen, and especially in these playoffs, Utah's, Phoenix, hey, they might be on the way down, and you guys could be back ascending.
Fall out, they fall out, and you kind of just immediately start climbing back up because you have years with DeJounte and Levine. Like, it's not like they're 30 and you're like, okay, we have to do this now. Like, we have like 2 years to win. Like, you open yourself a window there. They have more than max cap space, so like they'd be able to kind of maintain some financial flexibility where if they wanted to get out of some deals later on, then maybe they can go add someone else, add other impact role players to that roster. Because I do think once you sign Levine, you're not going and trying to find a way to add another max contract at any point. Nah. You're trying to add other guys around that big 3 and hope that that's good enough.
And I think Pop can help unlock Levine because we saw with DeRozan, right?
Yeah.
People kind of forgot about DeRozan, but then you like watch, and even if you just look at the stats, you're like, he's averaging 7 assists a game? Like that wasn't his game in Toronto. It's like there's another level to DeRozan, like as far as a playmaker. And I think Levine has shown that he can have some playmaking ability. And I think going to Pop can help him because that's the next. We know he could score, right? We know what he could do. We know he could do in transition, all that. But there's still another level of Levine that we need to see for him to be in that top echelon type player, all NBA, right? That's the goal, right? All NBA, right? And I think Pop can unlock McGay. You don't need to drop 27 a game. Like if we cut that down a little bit, but you averaging 7 assists a game, today that makes the team better and that makes you a better player.
Yeah, and quite frankly, we talked about this on the watch along from an attendance standpoint. Paolo and Levine on the Spurs next year sells tickets. It sells jerseys. It
does, man. And that's an underrated aspect. That's an underrated aspect.
It's an underlying aspect of when they walk into the owner's office and say, "Hey, Zach LaVine will sign here for the max."
Yeah.
And we have this deal with Houston that we can get done for the right. Like
Paolo will help jersey sales for sure.
Yeah.
How did you guys do in attendance this year?
No, we talked about this. We were like 27.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. We did. You guys were bottom. Yeah,
they were like bottom. They were like one of the worst in the league.
Yeah. And I think Paolo becomes a hot jersey for sure.
Yeah, and he shows up there, and then you bring in Levine, who's kind of Spurs' first elite scoring guard. Like it's kind of like one of those things where elite. It's a different level of elite than DeRozan was. Like it's a guy who's actually going to shoot the ball from behind the 3-point line.
Yeah, he's going to shoot 3. So he's going to take 6. DeRozan shooting 2, maybe 2 a game. But
and the other thing too with DeRozan, I think everybody kind of knew that was kind of just like a last ditch effort to maybe compete with an aging LaMarcus Aldridge. And so I was like, okay, well, whatever. But I think that you try to trade up to 2 or to 3, and you know what? If you end up like somebody takes Paolo in front of you, it's like, whatever. Like, fine. Like, take Chet.
Jabari. Hey, maybe Jabari's at 3.
Hey,
Jabari.
That 3 is there. Yeah.
If Jabari's at, let's say, Chet goes 1, and Paolo goes 2. Because Oklahoma City's probably like, all right, we're gonna got a Poku. Do we really need another skinny dude that's like Poku on a team? And let's just take the bigger dude in Paolo, and then 3's there. And you're like, okay, we got to call up and see, because Jabari would be, that would be a home run for you guys if you could somehow pull that off.
I just think if San Antonio can find a way to get to 3, then there's no way that it goes wrong. No. There's no way that you don't take a prospect that you feel immediately great about.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think that's kind of the goal there. You try to package the 3 first. You send someone like Devin Vassell to Houston and listen, we'll essentially give you 4 impact players for your 1 pick here at 3. And then I think you try to go spend money. Even if you don't add Levine, I think the trade up makes sense. I think it makes sense. Yeah. Because worst case scenario there is you're giving Primo a starting opportunity to develop. You're taking a guy that's an elite level first round talent, and you kind of are hoping that things develop. You have Keldon, who's stable. You have Pirtle, who's stable. And honestly, them having bigger roles allows you to evaluate them more and figure out what they are for the next 3 to 5 years. Because, I think about this a lot with sports, just all sports in general. It kind of applies. You have a 1-year plan, you have a 3-year plan, and you have a 5-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can figure out. So Keldon and Pirtle are for sure in the 1-year plan. They're probably in the 3-year plan. We need to figure out if they're in the 5-year plan.
Yes,
we need to figure out with larger roles, are they in the 5-year plan? And so I think that if you miss on Levine, which I think probably right now you would say that's more likely than not, is that you miss on Levine. He probably wants to go to a bigger market and have a chance to contend right away. Those are real obstacles.
But you never know. We didn't think LaMarcus was going to go there, so you just never know.
No. You never know. You never know, and that's why you make the contract offer and you try to talk him into it. But you have to also prepare for the fact that he likely doesn't.
Yeah. Most likely, yeah. Well, most likely he probably won't go. But like you said, you just never know. So you have to prepare for both.
When you have the money and then the relationship and then also the greatest head coach to ever coach the game, you have a puncher's chance. And so that's why you go in and you try. But if not, there's ways that works out with the trade up where you're all right, now okay, let's go into the next Spurs season where it's all right, are you going to be very good next year? No, but we're going to watch Josh Primo take a ton of shots. We're going to watch, one of these top 3 draft picks start to develop and be in the starting lineup night 1. And we're going to watch DeJounte do his thing. Mm-hmm. And so, you're just kind of okay, I can see it here. There's a little bit of vision here. I can understand, where it's going a little bit. And you already have a bunch of third starters. That's probably a play-in team again. You're probably picking, I think they have multiple firsts next year, too. I think they have another Bulls first or something like that. So, I mean.
And you said, there's not a lot of teams with a lot of cap space. This is not a lot of teams that like.
No, and everybody's talking sign and trade to the Lakers. Well, how are they doing that?
How are they doing that with what picks?
Yeah.
A 31 first round pick? No.
In what money?
In
what money?
You would have that would mean Westbrook would have to go back in the deal, and let's just face it, if I'm Chicago, why would I do that? It just doesn't make any sense. So that doesn't make sense, but all that. But if they do stay put, the Spurs, let's say they do stay put. And no trades, and then they stay put at the 3 picks. Is it just strictly let's just take the best player available, or is there wing? You look for wings, or
I think you're looking wing. I think you're looking wing, but I think a lot of people would be upset if they took another guard. And I've said repeatedly that they don't need more guards. But if a guy like Shaedon falls, because some people just can't get there with him.
Yes.
If you take someone like that with that ceiling. I'm you're not mad. You can't be mad.
Are you trying to essentially try to find home run picks, try and take those upside guys?
You're absolutely.
And it's not the typical Spurs how you guys have done it, but you're at a crucial point where you kind of have to hit those home runs and try to find those guys.
If they take another guy who you look at that profiles and projects as a
Primo last year, I was oh, I didn't see this coming, but
and the other thing is
the upside could be great.
And here's what they bought into with Primo. They've said it repeatedly. They said, we took a guy here that we think was going to be a top 5 pick if he went back to school the following year. So they thought Primo was a top 5 talent in this draft class. And so they were we're going to take him now and convince him to come because we'll just get an extra year of development. And we get him at, I think they were sitting at 14 or something last year, or something like that, 11 or 9 or something like that. I don't know, but something like that. And so it's okay, we'll do that. And so that was a swing for upside. They did swing for upside. We just Primo's just kind of hasn't really gotten to play a ton and hasn't developed a ton yet.
And we saw some late. We saw him late get some
late. Yeah, no, we've seen plenty of flashes, and we've seen stuff where. Yeah,
he's also super young. I think he was the youngest player in the draft last year.
He was 18 on draft night.
So he's a baby. So he's still
he didn't turn 19. He turned 19 a few days after Christmas. So he had already played NBA games by the time he had turned 19. So he didn't turn 20 until 30 games in the next season. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I'm kind of all right, and we saw flashes defensively from him where he would body up a legitimate all-star and strip and get strips or get blocks or whatever else. The two-way upside there is there. We've seen some of it. Like it's just you have to unlock it and find the right balance for him. So I think it's all there, and they just have to find a way to, they've got to find a way to unlock it. But that's why I think that you're swinging for upside. Like that's why I've seen a lot of Keegan Murray mocks, a lot of Sohan mocks, and I'm like, why? For what? For what? Like, what are you getting out of that? Like nothing. Yeah. You're taking another guy who profiles as a fourth starter who, when we look at the roster next year, we're saying, damn, we've got a bunch of these guys.
Yeah, and you guys have a bunch of those profiles on your team. So like you said, you got to kind of find that hit. You got to hit to find that guy who's going to be a potential 20, plus point scorer for you guys and potential all-star down the line. So you got to have to hit. You got to hit a home run.
I think that's why guys like, I think that's why, like, if a guy like Shaden falls and they took and if they took him because they couldn't get all the way in, I think you can easily buy into that upside. And it's the same case. It would be the same like when they have the press conference, that night or the next day, and they say, okay, well, why Shaden? The answer is exactly the same as it was for Primo. It's like we think he was a top 5 player in next year's draft class, so we took him.
Shaden's a number 1 type of player. And we got him at 9.
We took a chance. We took a chance because if he develops, then we're hitting a home run. And if he misses, whatever, we still have all the third starters we had before. So like that's why I think that they're swinging, and that's why I'm kind of like, that's why I don't think like the Maturin guys, the Keegan Murray guys, the Sohan guys, the Taris, I don't think all those guys are going to be in play at 9. Because, I mean, just another guy that doesn't project as a future, or doesn't project is the wrong word, doesn't have the upside of an all-star. I hate to use the word worthless. That's not fair. But,
no, I know what you're trying to say.
Fit. Yeah, it doesn't.
You don't need another just all right, he's good.
Yeah,
you need he's great.
We need him to do something once or twice a week where you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah, you need an my God player. You need to get back on that because you got a bunch of these guys are good. Now you need him.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, him. Yeah.
That's why
you need to watch out for him on a
That's why basis. I've talked about Bryce Mcgowan so much, just because I think there's a chance that,
and that's going to segue to my the next thing we're going to talk about as we close out the show. I know he's someone that you're very high on, and not a lot, and you don't hear a lot of people talk about Bryce Mcgowan. So I want to give you the floor on why you feel Bryce is better than a lot of people are projecting him to be, and just give us reasons why you think he's someone that should go as high as you think he should be going.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the measurables are all there, and it's things that you look at, and while you don't want to buy completely into measurables, I think there was things on tape with Bryce at Nebraska that we saw that translate to the league where it's like, oh my, okay, that's what really good scorers in this league do. Like that's how they do that. And he's 6'7" with a guard-like handle. He can play the 2. He can probably play the 3 if he adds weight, and he's still young. He's a one and done. So there's still projection on the frame, once he gets into an NBA weight room. So you're talking about a guy that you can add to. He's a guy with handle. He shot 85% at the free throw line, which is typically a translator. He shot well off the catch and shoot. So you know that it's there. He's got NBA range already. So you know he can shoot from behind the arc. He can shoot at the free throw line.
And he had to carry a bad team.
And so there's work that needs to be done off the dribble. You definitely have to add to the frame because if you don't do that, then he's probably not going to be strong enough to play in the league. But I think those are things that are probably pretty likely. And so you add to the frame and you help him get better shooting off the dribble, which Chip England and if the Spurs were to take him at 9 or something like that, it'd be like, you have guys, shooting coaches there that can really, help unlock that type of stuff, the shooting off the dribble and the mid-range game that he kind of struggled to hit. I also thought we saw stuff on tape where defensively, I think people are concerned about him getting bodied around by bigger guys in the league, but we also saw some stuff where despite the skinny frame, he could kind of he could take the banging. When a guy tried to, bang on him in the post or kind of tried to body him in the lane on drives, he could handle that. And there needs to be more consistency defensively. There's no question.
Of course, he has the length though. He's 6'8".
He's got the length to be an impact defender and really impact passing lanes and pick guys' pockets and stuff like that. There's just so much upside there where if everything goes right, that you're talking about a player that could end. When we do the redraft in 3 years, if everything goes right, McGowan's could be a top 5 pick. Mm-hmm. And so I think for people in the lottery, the late lottery, like the 10 to 14. It's like, how do you not take a shot on that? And like, I'm not throwing shade at Tari Eason, but why take that where you know that he's probably at best a third, fourth starter and maybe just a bench player? Because people really like Tari, like think he's going to develop offensively, and I don't really share that.
Yeah, I don't see it either. And like I said, he's kind of someone that's kind of skyrocketed, especially
Yeah.
like the last few months of the college season, and I saw him go as high as like in like a few mocks, like
I saw
6.
someone
And I
that
was
had
like,
him at 7, and I was like, no.
that's a little rich for me. Like I don't see the offense. I think obviously I get the defense, and I think the physical tools are what people are kind of like infatuated by. But that can be that can trap you.
Fine.
That can trap you.
From 15 to 20, that's fine. But I think a lot of his offense at LSU came off of either walk-in threes or blowing by people on straight line drives. And when you have the level of size and the body frame that he has and the skill set that he has, nobody's really going to be able to guard you that way in college anyways. So I need to see like an enhanced offensive bag. And like I think with McGowan's, it's something that you did see. Like you did see an enhanced offensive bag and like multiple ways to get by defenders and multiple ways to beat people. And and then I also was pretty impressed with how he finished at the rim this year, to be honest. Like he's a guy that doesn't finish necessarily violently, but he has really good touch. And I think with skinny guys, it's a lot of times you worry about that because if they can't finish at the rim, that's kind of a problem against shot blockers. But I actually think he finished at the rim pretty well. And then I think I'd have to go back and look at his combine stuff, but I think his vert actually came out pretty well. So like he's a guy that's going to be able to get up. He's going to be able to play above the rim. And I just think there's so much there. I think there's so much there that people aren't talking about in terms of prospect status and in terms of upside that if you're going to do something like that in the late lottery, I think that would make a lot more sense than taking a guy where there's a chance that he is not even in the league and is not even like a bench player. Like, I mean, I think at worst, like, McGowan's will at least be able to get you some buckets off the bench. Like, I mean, I just think there's so much upside there. 6'7" guys with handles and stuff like that. Like that type of stuff doesn't come around often. So when it does, I think you have to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I think there's another guy, Jaylen Williams from Santa Clara. It's another guy who I'm hearing a lot of buzz, like lottery buzz, and he's someone who's steadily improved each year. And I think he had like a 40-inch vert, and like all the measurables on top of like the production kind of like are going hand to hand. And I'm hearing, I know Rafael Barlow, and he's hearing stuff in the combine. They're like, hey, don't be surprised if he gets that, getting the late lottery, or at least in that mid-teens. Like he could go that high up, and it's crazy how, this process and how much he's risen in the last few months too. He's I've heard his name, a little bit during the season, but like since the tournament and all that, his name is just absolutely shot up the boards a lot. So he's someone that to be looking out for that lottery. Who for you is the biggest dropper? Who you just like, all right, someone that maybe early in the process you were like, all right, this guy's probably top 5, top 10, maybe lottery, and now you're like,
I feel like the answer a month ago was Kennedy Chandler, but then he's got, I think he roller coaster, right? Beginning of season, lottery, then like, oh no, not draftable. Like even we talked to Urson, right? And you're like, he's someone he was down on, and then went back up, right? Paternity time, and like his measurables too. Like, I just had it up. What was his max vert is 42 inches. Yeah.
And he's a 5'11".
I know. That's what I'm saying. So I think like that's a guy who I think is actually starting to climb a little bit.
He's climbing back. He's first round. He went from top, maybe a lottery, then back down. Oh, he maybe is a second round pick, maybe stayed. Now he's back to back in that first round.
I think the two really easy answers are Patrick Baldwin Jr. and Jaden Hardy. I think those are the two really easy answers. I mean, I think, we read the Wasserman article where, Hardy was
it's like 32nd, right?
Potential second rounder.
Which is crazy. It's just crazy how it's dropped that much.
And then I saw one with Patrick Baldwin Jr. going 30 earlier today. And so like I think those are guys, and then Baldwin's vert was like 25 inches or 25.
He's got no vert.
He can't really get off the floor very much.
And with bad tape, that hurts him.
And some injury problems.
And some people questioning his effort too. So like, there's a lot
Pretty
of
much everything
things
it's pretty much everything.
everything that you don't want in a prospect, he has, and I get why. He probably had to carry the load, and he's playing for his dad, and that could be tough. And I wonder what if he had went to Duke, because that was originally the plan. It was him to go to Duke. Like, what if even if he was the third, fourth option, he probably would have been the second or third option this year on Duke. But I feel like maybe, and at first I was like, maybe him playing with him, being the guy in Milwaukee and trying to elevate that, take him to the tournament that could benefit him. But in reality, it probably was the worst thing for him, and it may have not just killed. It might have just kill is not even the word. Whatever worse than that, like it might have just absolutely eviscerated his draft stock. Where a second, like there's a chance he could drop to the second round. We've seen it. We saw it with BJ Boston last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it's not, but in the same boat, right? BJ Boston was, he's top 5. He goes to the second round. Now he had some flashes this year with the Clippers, so like they might have gone for an absolute steal, and he could still be a good player, but like that's not what BJ Boston wanted to be a second round pick.
That's not what the
non-guaranteed contract. That's not what you want, right? That's not the plan. That's not the goal, but that could be the case with Pat, because like I said, 29-inch vert for a wing, that's not what you want.
Yeah, that feels like one of those two where like if he was there at 38, the Spurs might jump.
And that might be a blessing. Like,
that's one of those.
It sucks now, and like for a lot of these guys, it might suck now, BJ Boston, but down the line, it may be beneficial.
I mean, you're talking about swinging for upside, man. Like, the Spurs swinging for upside. What higher upside are you swinging?
Hey, tell me about it, man. That would be an absolute.
And they had to put some springs in his shoes, though.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
you got to do something there, because that's. I mean, I don't know. I know I got bad knees, but I may be able to get. That was not impressive at all. Like I saw, but he does have the length. He got a 7'19" wingspan. He got a crazy ass wingspan. But that vert, I mean, you can't get up. Who cares about the wingspan?
If you're not explosive, I don't really.
You're not explosive. If you can't take dudes off the dribble, all that's kind of mute. That you're, with the wingspan and all that. So he's someone that's definitely dropped a lot. So. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how the draft falls for him, because it's very deep, very wide, his range. Yeah, I can still see someone taking a flyer in him mid first.
Hell, the Kings may take him at 4. The Kings may take him at 4.
That might be the guy that be like, that's like, what? They did what? And that's why the Kings, you can never count them out to do something silly. Yeah. So that's always good. That's why like maybe the Knicks will pull up. But we'll end it on that note, Walker. I appreciate you coming on the show. We're definitely gonna do a lot more. We got a lot more to talk about the draft. And as the combine stuff and as we get closer, me and Walker will definitely be back on to talk about what's going on and all that. But like I said, Walker, appreciate you being on the show. And where can people find you, and if you got any projects coming up?
So it's at WalkerBailey8 on Twitter. And then I've kind of been doing some writing stuff again, writing about the Rangers blog-wise. So I've been doing a little bit of that. Probably going to post something. I was planning on posting something today because I like to post the positive stuff before they face a really good pitcher. So that way when they lose, the positive stuff doesn't so, yeah, we'll see. They face Verlander again today. I have a way of posting these things when they face Verlander. Anyway, but yeah, and then just visit Off the Ball Network. I think it's just offtheballnetwork.com now. No more like wig sticks in the URL.
No, we got the domain back. I got the domain back. So we got the offtheballnetwork.com. I wanted that one back, so I waited till we got that clear. So Off the Ball, it is up. It's just running. Like I said, we're gonna have a lot of stuff posted. I'm gonna have a big board. I'm gonna have a mock draft up there too. So check that out. And like I said, thanks for coming on. Like I said, we're gonna do a lot more stuff. Me and Walker will have a lot more stuff. Like I said, I'm hopefully to have some prospects on the pod and do some live mock drafts as we get ready. The NBA draft's not too far away. A month away. And we say we talk at Spurs. We'll break down more teams. Like I said, we talked Spurs today. We talked some Knicks. We'll break down some more teams, break down some more players, see who drops out. That's still to come. So on that note, I'm Chris LeBron, president of Off the Ball Network. Make sure to go to offtheballnetwork.com. Check out the YouTube. It's going to be posted on YouTube. Subscribe, help us get to 300, 400, 500 subs. Let's keep growing. Like I said, check out the pod, rate, review, subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, whatever you listen to it. or give me a 5-star rating, and check out all the great content creators on Off the Ball Network. But on that note, as Walker Bailey, I'm Chris LeBron, and we are out.